wham felt sudden, hard, forceful, quick, but relatively small of a thing. Felt dangerous, strong, powerful. I had a feeling of anxiety, fear, cold sweat, like sick to my stomach.
A building being destroyed, energy being exchanged. And I got the impressions of a coastal city.
A destruction of a man-made object in space. There's intense light and debris. There's death of life and a change in the DNA.
It is initiated in a top-down way from government or corporations. So even though this looks chaotic and it looks organic, what's actually happening is kind of those forces moving behind the scenes which have kicked this process off with presumably the hope that it's going to end a particular way.
This observer was kind of like an overseer, like watching this whole thing unfold. And I had this AOL of Prometheus giving the fire to humans.
What did 5 experienced remote viewers see when they looked at the fiery astrology of April 2026? In this episode, you'll find out. This is World Astrology Report. I'm your host, Dan Waites, and welcome to another journey into the past to understand the present and the future. We're about to see some highly combustible astrology with at least 6 planets in the Mars-ruled fire sign of Aries by the middle of April. That's not exactly what you want to see at a time like this, as I'm sure I don't need to explain much further. But can we be more precise about what's coming? Well, I covered this astrology in my April forecast, which you might want to check out if you haven't already. But astrology isn't the only way to forecast future events. And so in this episode, I'm collaborating with the Second House remote viewing team, a collective of 5 expert remote viewers. In case you're unaware, remote viewing is a protocol for doing psychic work that was designed in the 1970s for the CIA by physicists Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ. Last year, I made a video with one member of Second House, Josh Maitlin, and for this one, we'll have the testimony of 5 remote viewers to work with. In remote viewing, the viewers are not told what their target is. This is to make sure that they don't just overlay a load of their pre-existing ideas and corrupt the psychic data that they perceive. Ideally, the person who sets the target is not the one who gives them the target either, making this a double-blind protocol. For this episode, the Second House team were told that the target was from World Astrology Report, but they weren't told anything else except for the target number on the front page of the tasking document. The target I gave them was this: the viewer will perceive and record the most impactful global news event that competent astrologers will interpret as being related to the Mars-Saturn conjunction of April the 19th, 2026. Now, Mars-Saturn conjunctions come every 2 years. They represent episodes of sustained challenge that unfold over the course of that cycle. And major episodes of history tend to synchronize with this cycle. For example, this cycle timed major developments in the unfolding of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ukraine conflict, and most recently, the conflict between Israel and Iran. The conjunction of the planets initiates the cycle, and the events at this time are very important because they tell us about some of the major problems that the world will be dealing with over the 2-year cycle they initiate. But there's more going on with this particular conjunction, which I talked about in the April forecast. Mars and Saturn are a high-pressure, frustrating, and often explosive combination of planets. Mars and Saturn will actually form a very tight triple conjunction with the messenger planet Mercury. This suggests to me that this conjunction could bring serious problems with trade or markets or communications technology, or all of the above. It could well be that the 2-year cycle that's beginning now will in part relate to the oil and energy crisis that seems to be stirring now, of course. But if we look again at the planets in the lineup, you'll see that Neptune is also present. Neptune is the planet of illusion and delusion. And here I want to issue something of a warning. I think this astrology could absolutely be signaling the possibility of provocative attacks that bring more countries into this war. And the nature of such attacks could be fundamentally illusory. It could be something that's dressed up as one thing while actually being another. Yes, a false flag attack of some kind is very much possible. Something I noticed when preparing my year ahead forecast is that the Mars-Saturn conjunction of April is directly hitting a lot of mundane charts, including that of NATO, the UK, France, Germany, India, China, Taiwan. This could be signaling multiple different events that affect these various countries in different ways. Or it could be one big one. I don't know, honestly. It could be that something incredibly serious happens that prompts a global response from all these different places. And that thing could have to do with nuclear technology. Now let's get into the data. I'm going to add a little commentary as we go through it. Please do give the video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That stuff really helps me win over the YouTube algorithm. And one last thing, if you sign up as a member on my website, you get access to my full back catalogue of videos and live streams, including my most recent one, Ahriman AI and the new Tower of Babel, which honestly I think was probably the best one I've done so far. So please do consider signing up there if you want access to all that content. All right, onwards to the sessions. Now, I gave this tasking to the second house team in December of 2025, and by late January 2026, they'd all run their sessions. On Friday, February the 6th, we met online to go over their data, and I revealed to them what the target was. So something to bear in mind is that all this work was done many weeks before Iran was attacked by the US and Israel. We're going to go through the data of the 5 remote viewers one by one. The first of them was Rich.
What I got out of my session overall, the target felt very urban. There's a feeling of being close to or on top of nature. The urban area feels enclosed and landlocked for growth. It kind of felt like, I believe, Hong Kong or Taiwan, where it's just kind of the city is surrounded by mountains in a way. Felt very densely populated. There's a feeling of residential areas in the surrounding hillside whereas the city center feels more commercial. So here you can see my sketch. And again, we got labels A, B, and C. C definitely felt more like almost like an amphitheater, right? In the sense of there were hills and buildings up on the side, but there was an area kind of flatter where all of it kind of converged into. There's a sense of a destructive event occurring. There seems to be a particular structure that is either the target or is the most impacted by this event. The structure feels tall and currently being worked on. There's an impression of being either relatively empty or open, in either purposeful design or either in an incomplete state. It feels outstanding, distinct. Like if you saw the building, you'd be like, oh, I know that building. The destructive force in question felt expansive and growing or swelling in nature, small at first and then building and building and building and building in size. A felt fast, downward movement, angled, felt thin, long, cylindrical, hard, metallic. Obviously, with that, I got an AOL, an impression of an airstrike, right? If the data sounds like a missile, I'm thinking missile. So we put that aside as an AOL.
I'll note 2 things here. Firstly, the Mars-Saturn conjunction is hitting the charts of China and Taiwan directly. China's sun is at 7 Libra, exactly opposite the conjunction, while in the Taiwan chart, the descendant, signifying enemies, is at 7 Aries. So I'm expecting that there could be significant events related to China and Taiwan around the time of the conjunction. So it's pretty interesting that Rich mentioned Taipei. However, I'd also note that the description of the city could also match Tehran, which right now would seem to be the much likelier bet for what he's describing. In the Iran declaration chart, the sun is at 11 Aries, pretty close to the conjunction. And in the Khomeini chart, another popular chart for Iran, the ascendant is at 4 Aries and the moon is at 7 Aries, the very degree of the conjunction. Both Taipei and Tehran have mountains around them, and both have a very striking tower that dominates their skylines. In Tehran, that's the Milad Tower, while in Taipei, it's Taipei 101, recently climbed without ropes by mad free climber Alex Honnold.
I just say it because it's so kind of such a cliche statement in the RV world, but mushroom cloud, right? And usually when RVers get that, that is blown wildly out of proportion. So I don't want to scare anybody in the sense of some sort of nuclear disaster, but usually this just means some sort of kind of explosive force, right? It really kind of reminded me of the Beirut explosion. That's what came to mind, where at first you kind of see the initial explosion and you're like, wow, that's a big explosion. And then you see the next phase of it and you're like, oh, wow, that's okay. And then you see the final stage of it and it's just insane, right? Again, we typically kind of blow things out of proportion when it comes to this sort of destructive nature. But that was definitely the impression that I got. It was kind of that kind of stacking explosion feel. Man, I felt shaky, vibratory, felt dangerous, strong, powerful. I had a feeling of anxiety, fear, cold sweat, like sick to my stomach. And I don't really get like that too much in real life. when I see something terrible happen, I'm kind of cold to it. But this kind of stuck out to me. Uncertainty, disbelief. Oh my God, is this really happening? That kind of feeling to it, right? So let's focus on, all right, the feelings of active God. Reminded me of Deep Impact. So I'm not sure if it was some spaceborne event, kind of a missile. I mean, it felt like something hitting and then just an explosion building.
The second remote viewer to give her data was Eliza Lagana, who also saw what appeared to be explosions, but with images of DNA being changed as a result of the event.
So my summary is this event involves some kind of energy that moves within this double-layered stream that arcs upward to a small circular area that isn't completely closed. This stream that is double-layered contains particles of DNA that have been augmented and cut up, spliced and changed as a result of intense energy from a single focal point. It feels like a destruction of a man-made object in space. There's intense light and debris. There's death of life and a change in the DNA due to this event. This change and spliced DNA floats down through the atmosphere as a glistening, luminescent glow. And I definitely saw these like broken pieces floating down. And so I got this swooping sensation and feeling. And then I immediately got that sense of that double layer. It felt like, it was DNA, like you can see that X in the strand there, that double stranded, and it had that feeling of life associated with it and energy associated with it as well. And when I linked up to it and I saw that small circular area, there was definitely like this tail to it. So that circle was not complete. There was this open energy to it at the end. And just me telling you that kind of gives me chills of like this confirmation of yes, of like there's this incomplete circle there. It wasn't solid. And that feels important to kind of tell you about this open loop. So if we move down a little bit further, we get to, the central point of activity, the central point of this focal point that has this booming sensation, that sense of boom. And this object that's moving out in space as associated with some man-made structure, some man-made object that creates this light and this movement outward. And as a result of that, we have this debris. And it was interesting because I felt not only that glistening and glowing and sparkling sensation as it moved down, but that definite bioluminescent feeling to it as well.
Next came Bond, who also saw explosions, and his impression was that the events will take place in a coastal city, which Tehran is not.
I had impressions of crowd noises, city sounds, textures of curvy, soft, movable, dusty, hard, wet spots, elongated city, but rural. Burnt smells, cordite, bitter and salty, energies of emotions, sad and tired. I too have aspects of a building being destroyed, energy being exchanged. And I got the impressions of a coastal city, and it felt somewhat sub-Saharan and almost like it was a military type of movement where we had forces or individuals moving south and southeast along coastal into what seemed to be like the outer portions of a city.
Next came David Harker, whose session was quite different. As he suggested, he may have seen the aftermath of these events rather than the explosive events that other viewers saw.
I am wondering whether what we might have here is like the period after this building is destroyed, if we're all describing the same thing. Because I've got a bunch of like protesters or agitated people, and here's somebody, I don't know, telling them, calm down, we have a solution. Maybe like a press conference or something. So what I've called this session is an uneasy alliance, like a new, maybe political status quo. Those fearful people they're being brought together, but this process is really chaotic and organic. Things are kind of settling and landing where they land. And it reminded me of how like nobody's on Facebook because it's good. The only reason to be on Facebook is because other people that you want to talk to, like your grandparents, are on Facebook, right? And it was that kind of process where it's imperfect, and I think I said far from perfect. But divergence and imperfection are tolerated as they're part of a semi-organic process of change. So the things which are brought together, maybe it's just groups of people, but it's like old and new, maybe politics or governance or organization. But this is not a like planned, nice, even, neat, clean coming together that people kind of see coming. It's just, this is how the cookie crumbles. Yeah, it reminded me of like breaking bones, but it's fixing as in attaching rather than repairing. So the lesser of two evils. I said like chemotherapy sucks, but perhaps less than having cancer, right? So this isn't a good situation, but this is the process of the dust settling. Oh, hang on, there's a sketch there we might want to look at. I don't know if this is an explosion. I didn't know what this big round thing was, but I am famously a wimp with remote viewing data. If it gets violent and deathy, then I chicken out. So it could be that. But what's probably important about this is that it is initiated in a top-down way from government or corporations. So even though this looks chaotic and it looks organic, what's actually happening is kind of those forces moving behind the scenes which have kicked this process off, with presumably the hope that it's going to end a particular way.
And finally, there was Josh Maitlin's session. Among other things, Josh saw some kind of sky event.
At the end of my session, I did this summary, and I felt like I was kind of watching something happen on a screen. You know, this was some kind of event, but I just felt like I was watching footage of something like at sea or near the water. And it was like an energy event involving a boat or a structure, something in the sky that was observed, and that, you know, this video of whatever it is, this energy event that I'm observing, you know, became public through some kind of process like a leak. This caught people by surprise. It caught us by surprise, but I wasn't sure if that meant, you know, us, the people, or whether that was the US that it was talking about. I'm not sure if I was getting a few different events, because I feel like my session was a little bit all over the place, and it may have been a wee bit UFO flavored. The big thing that popped out right away was this little image here, which reminded me of like a finger pointing upwards towards the sky, and that there was some kind of partnership or collaboration involved between two entities or two groups. Had this kind of feeling of hands opening and clasping, this sort of ET phone home kind of with the finger pointing, but also this image of like Donald Trump pointing up or pointing at somebody. This feeling of like a being or something in a capsule, life in a capsule or container that's kind of being held up, held aloft, ultimately positive, but, you know, kind of in a UFO disclosure kind of way. But certainly whatever this was intriguing and felt like it was, would change things in some kind of way. On my, my second page here, I, you know, got this feeling of something emerging from a structure, a life that was kind of up above, observing this emergence of what I called element X. And there again, this observer was kind of like an overseer, like watching this whole thing unfold. And I had this AOL of Prometheus, like giving the fire to humans. There was this feeling of, you know, I kept hearing these kind of digital noises like beeps and boops and keyboard clacking, and again, this release or emergence from the structure it felt kind of technological in nature. Reminded me kind of a Chat GPT, like something that was kind of new and exciting, like a game-changing release of something technological that impacted people. And it felt game-changing. On my next page, I did this sketch. I had this kind of little humanoid shaped person with the kind of hair sticking out, reminded me of Trump. And I had this phrase, got him by the balls, but also this phrase, you know, biting the hand that feeds. And I also got that feeling of kind of apprehensiveness and excitement that Rich mentioned in his session. But at the end of it, I kind of felt like something is revealed or leaked that's significant and comes out into the public and sort of impacts the public consciousness. I mentioned this element X earlier, so I decided I wanted to sort of look into element X a bit more, because it was something that really jumped out as being an important aspect of this target. So I did this ideogram, just a quick drawing, and I had this sort of wave and then a big sort of looping energy. Alongside this looping energy, I had this sort of figure that was standing up above, kind of watching things transpire, or maybe off in the distance. And then all this kind of little stuff underneath, kind of within this circular area. This felt like people, kind of down below, that were watching this energetic event up above, which was overseen by someone.
So there's a lot there. Before we go, though, I'm going to give you some thoughts about what I think it could all mean. Something to bear in mind with the Mars-Saturn conjunction of April is that it could be signifying multiple events, not just one. As we've seen, it's hitting a lot of different country charts all at the same time. Among others, they include Iran, China, Taiwan, the UK, Germany, France, and NATO. There will be many more. So it's possible that the data you've seen in this video refers to different events that take place in more than one country. I'm still just at the experimental phase of working with remote viewers, so I can't claim I know how to get the best results from this kind of collaboration yet. The target was the viewer will perceive and record the most impactful global news event that competent astrologers will interpret as being related to the Mars-Saturn conjunction of April the 19th, 2026. And I've realized that phrase, competent astrologers, could be problematic because it could refer to the differing interpretations of multiple astrologers who will retrospectively interpret the events of April in different ways according to their own styles and biases. Next time, I think I'll just say most impactful global news event that World Astrology Report will interpret as related to the conjunction. I think this could lead to more consistency in the data. Anyway, one of the themes that most of the viewers saw was some kind of explosive event, sometimes described as a sky event. Given what's happening in Iran, it's very tempting to think that they were seeing something that will happen there. Tehran is already being hit by missiles and experiencing events that sound quite similar to the things that the viewers described. But the viewers did quite consistently point to water being near the city in question, and the Mars-Saturn conjunction is happening close to Neptune. In my April forecast, I said I thought that this could indicate a deceptive element to whatever happens, like a false flag event, perhaps. But sometimes Neptune just means water. Now, Tehran does have a large artificial lake, but it's not really a city known for being beside the water. So maybe we're looking at some other city and some other tower here. So perhaps something is coming in Tel Aviv, which is by the sea, or in Taiwan, given that the China and Taiwan charts are going to be stimulated, or maybe it's somewhere else entirely. A lot of the Gulf states have cities near the water, and they've already been targeted by Iran because they host US bases that are attacking Iran. And there's one other city that came to my mind in this context, and that city is Los Angeles, which is near mountains and the sea. And there are a couple of reasons why I thought of LA. The first is that the FBI has warned of the possibility of Iranian drone attacks in California. Of course, some kind of attack, were it to happen, could have the effect of galvanizing support for US involvement in the war, which is not exactly strong right now. Why Iran would want to do that is a good question to ask. It doesn't make much sense to me, so the question, cui bono, is as ever an important one. And on X, some users have pointed out that Lucky Larry Silverstein, former owner of the Twin Towers, happens to have recently purchased US Bank Tower, the second tallest building in LA. And for reasons obvious to many of you, no doubt, that has made people wonder if US Bank Tower could be a target. In the bonus section of the video, we look at the astrology of LA and California and some suggestions that the Aries new moon could bring danger for that part of the world. I really hope I'm wrong, of course. Whatever does happen, I think the events of April could lead to a response from NATO and its member states, including the UK, France, and Germany, which are currently sitting out the Iran war, or at least that's what they're saying officially. Anyway, moving on, the data that David and Josh got was interesting because it seemed to describe quite different situations that relate to systems and structures being changed as a result of coming events. Something that comes to mind here is the energy crisis that the Iran war has precipitated. People are pointing out that such a crisis would give governments the opportunity to bring in all sorts of new rules and systems that relate to energy usage or to the financial system. In other words, they could use this crisis to implement parts of the Great Reset and move us towards the digitally driven control system that is clearly under construction right now. And for me, David's data really seemed to speak to this possibility. He saw people protesting and a solution being offered to them that wasn't exactly good, but that just seemed better than the alternative. And he also got the sense that what was happening was planned. Problem, reaction, solution. Anyway, this is just me connecting dots, and it could all turn out completely differently. Neither remote viewing or astrology are exact sciences, and I think I need to get more experience working with remote viewers before I understand how to tie their work to astrology effectively. Let's see what happens, and let's hope for the best in fiery April. Do check out the Second House remote viewing team. They're here on YouTube, and I've linked their channel in the description below.
So yeah, if people want to come and check out other remote viewing work that we've done, we're Second House RV on YouTube and secondhouserv.com. And you can find more details about all of us. You can go hire us individually as remote viewers, find our training courses, find our media stuff that we put out, Second House RV. And we have got an exciting product launch coming up sometime this year. We are going to be launching a financial product of some sort. So if you're interested in what we talked about earlier, our volatility in gold and silver forecast throughout the year, we're doing stuff like that, a lot more nuance, regular kind of monthly releases, let you know what might be coming up in the future so that you can prepare. So if you go to secondhouserv.com, you can stick your email address in, and we won't sign you up for Ann Summers catalogs or send you anything weird. We're just going to use that to announce our product when it comes out. So hope you enjoyed our remote viewing work, and see you there.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and see you again very soon.